1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Almost a weekend and you don't know what to do. Or you just need something fun to listen to.
Southside Pod!
Yes, we're on the air. And the gang's all here, all things on the south side. We're listening to the Southside Pod. Looking for the best Southside breweries. Or you might just need an awesome place to eat.
Southside Pod!
Mount Greenwood, Evergreen, Blue Island, Beverly, Pay Listen, all sub 2. You're tuned into the Southside Pod.
Southside Pod!
Oakland, Midlothian,
Southside Pod!
Oak Forest, Chicago Ridge, Flossmoor, and Bridgeview. You're listening to Southside Pod.
Is your kid working this summer, Mike?
No, he's been unsuccessful at finding.
He's been what? Say that again?
Unsuccessful at finding a job.
Unsexed? What does that mean?
Well, yeah, his whole life.
Okay.
What is unsexed?
His whole life he's been unsexed.
What is unsexed? I haven't heard of. I've heard
You're
of
married, you know.
Listen, I've heard of so many crazy things in the last couple of years here in this country, but I have not heard of taking your teenage son and making him unsexed.
What does that flag look like? It's just a pole. There's no flag on it at all.
It's just a pole.
The ones he applied to didn't work out.
Are your kids working?
What I did.
I mean,
well, my
besides-
daughter wants.
I'm your daughter's employer.
Yeah, you employ her for babysitting.
Once in a
Yeah,
while.
you're gonna lose out a bit now, buddy.
she
Sorry.
goes, well, you know what?
She's got
Here's
a
the
real
thing.
job.
I would say
She's
this.
working for the man now.
Bill is better than minimum wage. Okay,
You have to be.
Like she will give them like a reasonable. I think she tries to tell them $10 an hour for babysitting, and he will
Way
just sit
too
there and be
high.
like, no, we're giving you
That's
a
like
bunch.
suburban
They don't want to
retail.
lose their
We
babysitter.
give her 15 plus however much she spends
and then
on
you
dinner.
leave extra, and you're
And
always
if Sam
tipping.
plays the
and-
machines and wins,
Yeah.
she'll throw her
Yeah,
extra.
yeah. Hey, I wanted
What
the
if she
slots.
loses?
Yeah, I wanted
right.
the slots. Here's an extra
Right.
50, kiddo. Like, yeah, she loves it when you guys win big. Yeah, she does really well. She comes home, she's like, Dad, I've got all the gas money for the month and your car insurance money, and I get the money. That's what happens when you win. I get the money. But she's going to be working at a burger joint in town, and then she's going to just work in the register, I would imagine, whatever.
Nice.
My son goes up to the Culvers in Evergreen Park.
Yeah.
Over by there, you know.
And he gets offered the job, and the guy goes, we need help in the front and in the back. And he goes, what do you mean in the back? And he goes, well, do you want to learn how to cook?
You know the back.
And he was like, yep. So this kid is going to learn how to cook burgers. And, you know, what else? You got the cheese curds over there and the fries and everything else like that. Right, yeah. So they're going to teach him how to
He's gonna
cook.
know how to slab the butter on the buns.
The butter burger.
He's going to be making all the stuff in the back, and they deep fry the chicken when they do things. They deep fry the fish. They do everything like fresh
Ice
for what
cream,
I've
they
seen
deep
in
fry
like the
the ice
commercials.
cream.
So he's got like this whole thing of training.
This is the 8-year-old?
No,
Yeah.
no, this is the 15-year-old.
Oh, okay.
He got a
We
work
adopted
permit.
all the same labor laws
got a
as all
work
those
permit.
southern states.
That's the funny thing. I guess at 15 you get this work permit. You can
Yeah.
start working a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So he's got a work permit, and he's going to be up there. He's
In
going
my
to be
day,
working
you
all
didn't
summer
need a
long.
permit.
What
to
is
work at
minimum
15.
wage nowadays?
$13.
That's the state minimum wage.
Yeah.
right?
What else?
Well, the
means
city's
anything?
different.
Yeah.
Why?
The,
What
the
is
city
it?
of
City
Chicago's
higher?
like 15 now.
Okay. So here's the funny thing. Tell me if this makes sense to you. My daughter, and I'm not going to say who she was working for because I don't want to embarrass them, but she's working for. Well, no, who cares? She's working for the Archdiocese of Chicago. She's working over
Yeah,
at
this
the
is
church.
not going to be one of their big problems.
No,
right
she's
now.
gonna be yeah, they got bigger problems. The Archdiocese of Chicago has bigger problems than what I'm going to bring up right now. Okay. She goes and works over at the rectory, and they try to tell her that in Evergreen Park, minimum wage is $9. And she goes, yeah, but the state minimum wage is 13. Yeah, but that doesn't count.
No.
It
in
never
Evergreen
goes
Park.
lower.
And I was like, sweetheart, that's not how this works.
Wow.
Whichever one is the highest is what you get. They don't get to just sit there and say because you live on such and such street, you make less money. You get the state minimum wage no matter what. Now, she put up with it. She went over there and she worked all year during the school year and she liked it and whatever. But I mean, then she comes to me and she goes, I got a different job and they're paying me minimum wage. I'm like, guess which one is your primary job?
Yeah.
It's that one. In fact, they're paying her more. They're paying her.
Why doesn't she have an issue
They're paying
with
her
this?
15, and it's $13 minimum wage, and the place she got is 15 an hour. And I'm like, you don't work at for the Archdiocese on any day that the place is paying you 15 an hour.
Right.
Says they want you to work. You're just there for extra money if you really want to work at the other place. That's what I was like. But I thought that was hysterical that they looked at a teenager and said,
That's
in
the
this
church,
little
right?
1 mile
That's
by
the
1 mile,
church.
the church. And the thing is, the paycheck comes straight from the Archdiocese of Chicago.
Jesus signs it.
No, he does not sign it. He does not sign
Nobody
it.
turns it into real money, so.
Nice. We can dance if we want to. We can leave your friends behind. 'Cause your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, there ain't no friends of mine. Ain't no friends of mine.
No friends.
There ain't no friends.
No
of mine.
Got no friends, ain't got no friends.
Ain't no friends.
Ain't no friends of yours. No friends. No friends. No friends. No friends. No friends. I saw something where the new drummer of Foo Fighters was playing so fast that Dave Grohl screwed up the song and was laughing hysterically. Like they were live streaming something. And they couldn't keep up, and you could see all the band members trying to play Monkey Wrench. And
Yes,
they
it
couldn't
was Monkey
keep,
Wrench,
they
and he
couldn't-
was-
Right. And he was going so
Oh, it was
fast,
so
they're looking at
fast.
each other and wording like what the F at each other. And then Dave Grohl tries to sing it and he can't keep up and he just
What's
bursts out
his
laughing.
band going to be called when Dave Grohl's girlfriend kills him?
Southside Pod is brought to you by Family Waterproofing Solutions, named one of the Southland's best the last couple years in a row, and they're up for it again. They're going to get it. You also have express service now. Know what you want. See the cost right on the website. Order and schedule on-site immediately for quick service. You heard the ad at the beginning of the show. Bowing walls, window wells, foundation crack repair, anything that has to do with keeping water out of your basement, protecting your foundation. Reach out to them anytime, 24/7, 708-330-4466. Your basement's best defense is at familydry.com. Mike's still trying to figure out what you were saying there. He's got a perplexed look on his face. I used to have
Mike's putting it together.
I used to have somebody who came
Well, he's
on my
married.
No. He's talking about how Kurt Cobain was murdered by Courtney Love. That's what he's trying
and
to
then
say.
he created Foo Fighters.
Yeah, that's what he's trying to
the
say.
new drummers band's
That's what he's trying to say.
when Dave Grohl
I used to have a psychic.
blows his
I
head
used to have
off.
a psychic that would come on and would tell me on my radio show that they were convinced that Courtney Love had killed Kurt Cobain.
Aren't we all?
And I would let that person say it because then when my program director was like, "We're going to get sued," I'd be like, "I didn't say it. The guest said it. I mean, I believe it, but the guest said it. I never said it." I've seen all kinds of weird stuff on that. Like people claim that the handwriting's different as you go through the letter. I don't know if that's true or not. He starts out talking about how he's going to break up the band at the beginning of the suicide note. And then like it's filled in the rest of the way with like all this stuff about like he wants to kill himself, but it's in different handwriting. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've
He also like
allegedly
tried to
read
kill
that several
himself like
times.
2 months earlier before he
And
died.
then suddenly she went from being somebody that looked like a meth head from a Simpsons cartoon to somebody that's all of a sudden starring in the Larry Flint movie, and she's all glamorous and she has like her own band and makes a ton of money. It was weird. It was weird how that happened.
Good for her.
You know,
Listen, if I let Billy Corgan write a bunch of songs for me, I can make a hit record too.
I'd kill myself too.
my uncle was a homicide detective with Chicago police, okay? And he had the greatest last name. His last name was Kill. His name was Mike Kill. My name's Mike Kill.
Kill.
Homicide detective.
I know
Like, that's
Pat-
a
That dude's-
movie.
That's a TV
It's
show. That's
crazy,
a
right?
patent lawyer
And
named
it's
Pat Lawrence.
Yeah. So
True
anyway,
story.
I remember I was talking to him one day, and he goes, "If you want to know who murdered somebody, and you don't know anything about the case, 9 times out of 10, it's whoever made the most amount of money off of the person's death."
Dave
so then
Grohl.
right away, I looked at him and I was like, "So Puff Daddy became famous and made a ton of money after Biggie Smalls and Tupac died." He goes,
Interesting.
Puff Daddy did it. Like he doesn't know. Like right away, that was his instinct. And I'm like, Courtney Love had a whole career after Kurt Cobain killed himself. Courtney Love killed him. Like that's how he would look at it. Like he would look at it and be like, probably. You still got to prove it. But most likely, if you follow the money, you're always going to get you're always going to find the
Occam's
murder.
razor, right?
If you know who benefited the most from the murder. If you can't solve the murder, wait 5 years. Say who benefited the most. Go back at the case, and you're likely going to find them. So, by the way, if I suddenly die tragically, okay, and Bill launches
How
a
am I going
podcast.
to make any money on his
Successful
death?
podcast
Bill
career.
becomes a successful
Right.
podcaster. He
It
murders.
ain't going to be me launching a successful
That isn't
podcast.
gonna happen though. That isn't gonna happen though, because Bill would be like, "I hate podcasting. I don't even know why I do this." Yeah. It's now time for your Southside Pod Word on the Street, brought to you by the brand new Spoke and Vine Wine Bar and Bottle Shop at 95th and Kedzie. We just did a feature there. You can listen to it on the most recent episode of Southside Pod, anywhere podcasts can be found, and always at southsidepod.com. And at some point I'll put the video up, although I hate how I look in this video. Like, sometimes I do the YouTube videos and I'm like, oh, Chris, you should have worn a hat. I'll get it up there though. Check out the bacon dates and the meatballs that they put out. Incredible. Big menu there as well. Anyway, before we get to what's going on this weekend, I want you to mark down a couple of dates. Our good friend John Streets with those artisan markets has a few of them coming up as July moves on. On the 22nd of July, they're out in Tinley Park. It's Sound Growler's anniversary, a ticketed event, live music, rain or shine. Sound Growler is turning 6, and what better way to celebrate than with a sick night of music. Saturday the 22nd at 5 p.m. Wraith, Coke Goat, Choke Setter, These Beast, and Bongzilla. I think those are bands. You get your tickets through Eventbrite, and John's got his artisans showing up as well. Then the next day, you're going to Hailstorm Brewing, one of my favorite breweries on all the South Side. The Flurry of Makers Artisan Market will be there on the 23rd. Inside, outside, Scratch Made Kitchen will be serving up food, wide variety of craft beer from the brewery, and you will be able to peruse through about 20 different artists and their wares, so you can go do a little shopping, have a beer, 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. on the 23rd. At Hailstorm this weekend, Eric Butler is playing Friday night, John McDonough live music on Saturday night, both of them on from 6 to 9 p.m. Also, on Friday night, 7 p.m. the 7th, Rocking the Deck at the Hometown VFW. This Electric Land Band serves up a tasty mix from Grace and Janice to Dolores and Pink. On Saturday, the 8th, 6 p.m., live music, one of these nights out at the Forge, 1001 Main Street in Lamont. They are the premier Eagles tribute band, and they will be at North America's largest outdoor adventure park in Lamont. Get your tickets at lamontdowntown.com. Southside Pod listeners, get to sidsauce.net. The pepper's grown on the South Side. The sauce is developed here, delivered to your door, at least most of you. The rest of you, they'll ship it to you. The only hot sauce we use here in this house and at this bar. See more at sidsauce.net. Also on Saturday, 9 p.m. until 1 a.m., the Thirsty Beaver in Crestwood. That is quite a bar at 5599 127th Street. Kicked Out a Choir returns to the Beaver. And if that is not enough live music for you this weekend, on Sunday from 6 to 8 p.m., a free summer concert. The Neverly Brothers will be in Klein Park and Evergreen Park at 97th and Homan. That's your Southside Pod bulletin board. If you have something for us, reach out through southsidepod.com. We're joking about the podcasting and the idea that if I die, who will take over and reap the rewards? But in all seriousness, I just recently did a class in front of a library here on the South Side. I had about 25 people, and I was talking about, well, how do you start a podcast? And one of the things that we do here at the Broadcast Basement, which produces Southside Pod and Socks in the Basement and many other podcasts, we teach people how to podcast. We let them use the studio. If you've ever thought about it, you can check it out. You can also listen to some advice. There's a podcast called Podcasting for a Living produced out of this 9-foot homemade oak bar, and we try to pass around every bit of knowledge about how to podcast to you. We also get some great guests that come in and chat, and I wanted to kind of share one of them that recently was on Podcasting for a Living. Our old friend James VanOsdol of Q101 and many other radio stations around Chicagoland fame stopped in to join us, and here is what he had to say about Chicago radio and what it's like out on your own podcasting here.
I was wondering today on my way here, are there people in radio actually doing interviews anymore? Like, I don't think so. I can't tell you the last time, especially on FM radio, that I heard someone do a live interview. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, they used to get him on the afternoon drive, right? Like in
Mornings,
between,
afternoons.
So yeah, but the afternoon drive guy at least was doing an interview or two a week, if not every day, if he was in a bigger market with some band.
Yeah.
Right. Like, by the way, in a 5 o'clock hour during this, we're going to sit down and talk with Fuel, or we're going to have the Pumpkins are going to be on, or whatever like that. They're going to be stopping by the studio. You don't see that, and you're right. Morning drive, I don't hear a lot of interviews anymore.
And certainly not in the other day parts, which are the other moments during the day. I mean, I worked nights at Q101 when I started, and I would have bands in all the time. And they'd stop in before or after their shows in town, and it would be live. It would be chaotic and not quite focused, and it was awesome. But I learned a lot from that. Right now, podcasters have an edge on broadcasters in that they know how to manage through that stuff better than the pros do.
I went and talked at Columbia College here in Chicago after Dan
I graduated
Levy,
there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, so I walked in and and when I said I never went there, everybody in the class looked at me like there was something wrong with me. It was kind of funny. Like, I was like, I'm from Chicago. I was in radio for like over a decade, and I've never been here. And they all looked at me like I was nuts. And I was like, I went down to University of Illinois, and my path was a little bit different. It's how I got on the air. But when I was sitting there talking to them, because Dan Levy, who's was on this show, they used a couple episodes with him. He had invited me to come talk to his students about what I do with my podcasting company. He sat there and he pointed out at some point, he was like, these kids now do podcast as a precursor to get on the radio, because there's not as many internship jobs. And it's very hard to get yourself on at 2 o'clock in the morning now. And instead,
forget 2 o'clock in the morning. There are no live jocks after 7 p.m.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So forget. Radio's done. Radio's not a career path. I'm not saying that.
No, you're right. I felt that way for years.
It is not a career path. AM radio is 1 foot in the grave at this point, because Ford just announced that they're not putting AM radios in the majority of its upcoming cars, not just electric vehicles, cars, period.
Wow.
Tesla already took AM radio out. So the AM band's about to completely lose all remaining relevance. I don't know what happens to Doomsday Prepper ads. They'll have to find a new place. But if AM is that easy to yank, what's the future of FM?
Yeah, eventually it's going to be podcast. People are going to be hitting a little screen, and they're going to have all their stuff pre-programmed in.
100%.
Yeah.
It is not a career path anymore. It was fun while it lasted. Thanks, FM. But no, it's done.
I was lucky I got in when I did. Me too. It was fun. But now it's over. And now you're in a marketplace where you have to fight against everything. I mean, think about it. Yeah. Radio was one of the only games in town when we were doing radio. It was TV, but TV couldn't be in your car. Right. I remember when they came, Lee Abrams at a conference in Minnesota at the Conclave stood up in front of everybody and said, we're going to launch a satellite. We're going to call it XM. And everybody laughed him out of the room. He was standing inside of a bar trying to convince radio DJs to leave their FM or AM stations to go to XM. And they were like, how are you going to do local traffic? Radio will never die because we can do local traffic. Guess what? It's been figured out. Yeah. There's no reason for people to have to sit down and listen in the car. But back then, there wasn't much competition. Now you're competing for people's attention against videos and TikTokers and other podcasters. How do you approach it? When you sit down and think about your audience and where you want to put your content, where do you want to put it, and how do you catch eyes?
Well, I think it was really important for me to develop a video strategy. And it was something, when I started 9 years ago, it wasn't as apparent because podcasting was as strictly defined an audio medium. So it didn't even occur to me. Over time, it became clear that the people who listened to the podcast wanted to see the guests I was talking to. They wanted to see us spill food as we were doing interviews in the front seat of the car. They wanted to see pasta sauce dribble down Jim Peterick of Survivor's coat as we're talking. I mean, that was really important. So video, I think, is key. And the way I currently approach it is I publish the long form episodes on YouTube and Facebook. And for each interview episode I cut out 1 or 2 clips and I share them as more digestible teases to what is in each episode. And I put those out on Instagram and TikTok. But that's how I fight for eyeballs. Now, the other question that's kind of tucked into this is the question of building audience. And I would like to urge aspiring, newer podcasters to not get too hung up on numbers out of the gate, not for a while. Take the audience you have, find ways to keep them happy, and grow from there. Again, small groups of highly interested people. You're not going to have 5-figure numbers out of the gate. And if you do, awesome, start selling right now. You're going to have a slow build. So figure out who that audience is, engage with them on social, on the platform that's most appropriate for your show, and keep them happy. That's it. And just keep growing from there. Make that small group fiercely loyal. That's the benefit of podcasting. That's the beauty of podcasting. When you're talking to someone on a podcast, it is such an intimate relationship. They're probably listening on their earbuds. They're probably listening in their home office by themselves. It is you and them. It is one-on-one. Keep developing that relationship you've created.
I think the thing that drives me nuts is that I go, and I've told this to Podbean, who hosts the majority of the shows on my network. I run 1 or 2 shows through Anchor Spotify or Spotify for podcast or whatever. Now Spotify took over Anchor in the last week or so.
Right.
Okay. Which I think was just, they always really owned it. And now they've just made it something else. But most of them are through Podbean. And since I have the network and the downloads that I have with all the shows, I can get on the phone with them. So I'll have a conversation with somebody in there and I'll start picking their brain about like, what do these numbers mean? What is really a download? Yeah. Why did this happen? And one of the things that I've told them that I hate is that I wish the landing page to do my work didn't show me my numbers immediately, because I would like to ignore them for a couple of weeks. Because think about this, when you had an Arbitron ratings book or whatever it was that was keeping track of who was listening to your station or your show, I didn't find out except once every 3 months. I wasn't every day going, oh my goodness, we're down 10% from yesterday. It would drive you crazy.
This is what I'm saying, and I hope I can convey this to people listening. Don't get hung up on the numbers. Hey, get hung up on being the best possible you there is.
You did Chicago Podcast Day.
I did, which was a 1-day, like 8-seminar presentation at a business incubator in Chicago called 2112.
It was really cool. I thought it was a really neat day, and I was honored that you asked me to come and participate in it. And I had a blast at it, and I made a lot of connections coming out of it. And I know you knew a lot of the people that were there, and some you had just kind of met a little bit. It was the first time we met face to face. And so what did you take out of it as somebody who, you put the entire thing together, you bring these people in? I would imagine everybody you brought in to talk was speaking on something that you found interesting. So when you put something together like that, like, what did you walk out of an event like that learning? And are those kind of events beneficial to podcasters to go to?
Well, I put the panels together based on what I thought people might be interested in. It wasn't so much what I wanted to learn or know. I wanted someone who had a curiosity or passing interest in podcasting to look at that lineup and think, oh, this is beneficial to me. I can walk out of here and have some sort of knowledge or ammunition to kick things off on my own. What I learned from that is there's still so much that needs to be demystified about podcasting. There's not a really clear roadmap for someone who wants to get into it. And in fact, it can seem kind of overwhelming. You mentioned Podbean. Well, I'm on Libsyn, but hey, what about Anchor? Just questions like that can be prohibitive to someone who just wants to easily slide into podcasting. So I think my big takeaway was just, how do we make this easier so that we can continue to grow this community of creators? Because the more of us doing it, the more knowledge we're sharing, the more best practices we can bounce off one another, and the better the medium can become, and the less relevant things like AM and FM radio can be.
Yeah, and the one thing that I kind of took from it was everything that's working for me doesn't mean that there isn't something I haven't even discovered yet. Like, that's what I had things that were working for me, but then I would hear somebody talk about something, and I'd be like, that hadn't even crossed my mind. I feel like that's one of the purposes behind what I'm doing here and sitting down with people like you and putting this out to people is the idea that, like, there's just so much out there and it's so scattered. I mean, it's not organized like any other media, right? It's not like a television they have their way of gathering their numbers and everybody can see themselves on a ranking somewhere. It's not like where you...
And every show is the specific length. It has to be in these specific time lengths.
Right.
And, in this format.
Instead, what you're doing is you're experimenting and you're trying to figure out, what do your people like?
As a creator, as a podcaster, give yourself the permission to change course. Give yourself permission to audible if something doesn't work or make sense. That's the beauty of the medium.
All right, Carne.
CarConCarne.com.
Does it have? Oh, it's got a website. See, that's what it's got to have. They all got to have websites.
Oh, dude, you should check out my website because not only do I do the podcast every Tuesday and Thursday, I feature a brand new song from a local band.
I like that. You've seen the void there that's missing as well in the area.
Oh my God!
Local radio used to do that. Now they don't. So now it's JVO.
I can talk for hours on that topic.
Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks, Chris.
It's kind of cool to hear from a guy like James VanOsdol. He's been on the show a couple of times. Him talking about podcasting, a lot more guys like him talking about it at Podcasting for a Living, exclusively on Spotify, out of the Broadcast Basement. More details on what we do here as well at broadcastbasement.com. Now, I may know about podcasting. I am not very good with money. That's why I go to Tom Walsh, your Edward Jones financial advisor. He's got a get-to-know-you approach, a do-the-right-thing attitude. He takes care of my money. He takes care of Bill's money. And Mike is just not very smart. I get all kinds of updates. I can call anytime I have a question. He's been doing it for over 2 decades, and he wants to help you as well, no matter where you are at in your retirement. The beginning, the middle, or the end, or if you're not even sure. He's going to tell you where you're at. Trust me. 3201 West 111th Street. That's right on the corner of 111th and Kedzie. Tom Walsh, your Edward Jones financial advisor. And it's good to have a guy that you can plan things with because, you know, you never know. You never know where life's going to go. I felt old yesterday.
Just finally?
Yeah, you should have felt old for the last 10 years.
No, but I felt really old yesterday.
Explain.
Doctor calls me up and tells me.
Your doctor actually calls you. That's how bad you are. Your doctor.
That's how bad it
was.
That's how bad it was. The doctor calls me up and tells me that like they did like a scan because for some reason my blood pressure's been up a little bit. And I blame my wife. Okay. But my blood pressure's been up a little bit. And I've lost 20 pounds in the last month because I'm like, I got to take care of myself. And so I went in there and I told him.
Still won't exercise though.
No, I am exercising. I'm lifting weights. Lifting weights and I'm doing walks and everything. No,
more like
I'm lifting real weights. I'm lifting real weights down the morning. I told myself I had to get better.
Walking down to the bar now instead of driving.
Wow. I used to stop. I used to get to the top of the stairs and I'd scooch my butt down the stairs.
Now you actually walk.
I love how he's pretending that's a joke, but it's real. I got a visual on it too, which is incredible.
I hate you so much. I hate you so much.
Was he wearing shorts or pants?
I hate you so much. I'm just in my boxers.
Him in some tidy whities. Honey, I need help.
And a Dago tee.
Like
definitely the Dago tee. That was the first thing I saw.
I can use that word. I'm Italian. So anyway,
So the doctor calls.
The doctor calls up, and what he says is he goes,
Vinny Boomba.
They did a CAT scan because he wanted to see what was going on. He goes, here's the good news. The good news is everything looks good, except where the bad news is. The bad news is I have one artery that has a little bit of plaque in it.
He only has one artery.
You got to brush
That's the problem.
Yeah, you can't get the plaque out. That's how that works. He's like, if you take this medication, you're going to be healthy as a horse. When you get to be 65 years old, you'll be healthier than most of the 65-year-olds. Because what he said was, it's a preventative thing. He's like, if you don't do anything, you're probably going to have a heart attack in 20 years. You're going to be good for the next 10 to 15 for sure. And it's somewhere between the 15 to 25 mark, you're going to have a heart attack. So I go, what did I do wrong? He goes, you didn't do anything wrong. You're sitting somewhere around the 75th percentile of all men.
Solid C.
Right.
Good work.
He goes, most guys you meet have worse than you. My wife looked at me and she goes, well, how do we help? And I said, well, you could just stop.
Shut the f*** up.
You want to keep me alive? You're done. You don't get to speak anymore.
But
Every time you open your mouth.
It starts now.
Every time you open your mouth, I get closer to death.
Look at my cholesterol points. I got a meter. Every time you talk, the meter goes up.
You should probably stop making those bacon smoothies too, you know?
Yeah, that's the big problem.
It's the Southside! It's the Southside! It's Southside Pod! Thanks for listening! Thanks for tuning in to the Southside Pod!
Y'all come back now, you hear?